Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can unwind and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us into one of the most haunting and beautiful questions science has ever faced. Does the past still exist? But before you settle in and get cozy, I'd love if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if you truly find these quiet explorations enjoyable. And when you're ready, leave a comment to let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always such a joy to see all the places we gather from, each in our own little slice of time. Now, feel free to dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft background hum, and let's gently begin our journey together. And if your mind starts to wander, that's perfectly fine. Let it drift. We'll still be here, quietly unfolding the story. Close your eyes for a moment and think of the word exist. It's such a small, ordinary word, so simple that we rarely stop to notice how strange it really is. You use it every day without a second thought. The chair exists, the sky exists, the moon, the air, the heartbeat in your chest. All exist. It feels solid, like a foundation beneath your feet. But if you linger with the word for even a few seconds, it starts to slide around like water between your fingers. What does it actually mean to say something exists? Does it mean you can touch it, see it, hear it? Or does it mean that somewhere, in some quiet corner of the universe, it's written into the great record of being, even if no one is looking at it? Look around you now. The device you're listening on exists because it obeys you. It lights up when you tap it. It hums when you press play. The glass of water on your nightstand exists too. If you tip it over, it spills and the world instantly reacts. That's the kind of existence we trust the most. Physical, immediate, unmissable. But then there are other kinds. Think of your first home. The colour of the walls, the smell in the kitchen, the creak of the old floorboards when you ran down the hall. You could drive to the same address tomorrow, but it wouldn't really be the same place. The time when you lived there, the laughter and the quiet and the arguments, that particular combination of moments. Where is it now? Has it vanished? Or is it somehow still out there, folded into the structure of reality? Some philosophers say that to exist means to be present, right here, right now. The past, in their view, has dissolved, gone forever, as if reality sheds its skin every instant. That seems sensible enough. It matches the way we speak. We say, "That was years ago," or "Those days are behind me." The past feels like something we've walked away from. But doesn't that idea also carry a strange kind of sadness? If everything that once was, every person you've loved, every sunrise you've seen, has truly ceased to exist, then the world is constantly erasing itself moment by moment, leaving nothing behind but faint impressions. And yet, you are made of those impressions. Every scar on your skin, every learned skill, every quiet ache in your memory, all are whispers from moments that supposedly are gone. You are the living residue of time. If those moments are nowhere, then how is it that they still move through you? Maybe existence isn't about what you can reach, but about what continues to shape what is. Perhaps being isn't limited to presence. Maybe it includes everything that has ever touched the fabric of the world. Imagine reality as a vast ocean. Each second is a wave rising, curling, and falling back, but the water never truly leaves. The pattern changes, but the ocean remains whole. Now imagine, just for a breath, that you could ask the universe a simple question. Does the year 1997 still exist? Not your memories of it, not the dusty VHS tapes or faded photos, but the year itself. The streets, the sounds, the people who were alive then but are not now. Where did that entire world go? If it vanished, what mechanism could possibly make something so vast, so real, simply stop being? Some thinkers have suggested that once something has existed, it never truly leaves. They picture the universe as a kind of book. You might be reading chapter 10, but chapters 1 through 9 still rest quietly in the binding. They don't disappear just because you've turned the page. And maybe, when you think about your own life, the same is true. Each moment you've lived remains part of the great story. You're just moving through its pages one by one. There's something deeply comforting in that thought, that the laughter of your childhood or the warmth of a long-gone afternoon still exists somewhere, written into the fabric of the cosmos. But there's also a quiet disquiet in it, because if those moments are still there, then so are the mistakes, the losses, the goodbyes. Nothing, it seems, ever truly leaves. Philosophers have spent centuries circling this dilemma, wondering what kind of reality time itself gives us. Some describe existence as a moving spotlight. Only what's under the beam is real, everything else fading into darkness. Others describe it as a grand stage permanently lit, where every scene of the play still stands somewhere in the wings, waiting, unmoving, eternal. And perhaps both are true, depending on how you look. From the inside, life feels like a story unfolding. From the outside, it might be a single, still tapestry already complete. The question, then, isn't just about physics or philosophy, it's about experience. When you close your eyes tonight and recall a memory, what are you touching? A ghost of the past, or a corner of something that still is? The air around you hasn't changed since you began listening. The sound of your breathing, the weight of your blanket, the faint hum of the world, they all exist quietly right now. But the thought you had a minute ago, the one that's already fading as a new one arrives, does that thought still exist somewhere? Or did it dissolve, making space for this one? If you follow that trail long enough, you begin to sense the depth of the mystery. Existence, that simple little word, isn't a solid floor, it's a sea, and we are small boats drifting upon it. Each wave we cross might never vanish at all. It might still be there, stretching out behind us, shimmering faintly in the starlight, holding the shape of everywhere we've been. And as we drift further into the story, this quiet sea of being will open before us, revealing the strange possibilities of what time might really be. Try, for a moment, to imagine a year you once lived through, perhaps one that still feels close enough to touch. It might be the year you first fell in love, or the year you left a city behind. You can picture some of it, can't you? The clothes, the voices, the light in a particular room. But if you ask yourself honestly, where is that year now, the mind stumbles. You can point to the calendar pages that once hung on your wall, or the photographs stored in your phone. But those are echoes, not the thing itself. The real year, the mornings and the nights that formed it, seems to have slipped away. You could drive down the same streets and they'd feel haunted, as if the world had quietly replaced itself while you weren't looking. The windows have new curtains, the trees have grown, the people have moved on. You can visit the coordinates, but not the moment. And yet, the thought that an entire stretch of reality, hundreds of days and nights, could simply disappear feels impossible. It's easier to imagine it sleeping somewhere, like a sealed chamber in the Museum of the Universe. If reality were a great library, perhaps the shelf labelled 1997 still stands, its stories already written, its characters frozen mid-breath. This way of thinking isn't only poetic. Some philosophers and physicists have argued that once something has existed, it remains part of the universe's structure forever, the way a ripple remains encoded in the motion of water, even after it fades from sight. To them, time is not a flowing river, but a landscape, a vast plain where every mountain, every valley, every instant still lies exactly where it always was. We move through it, frame by frame, like travellers reading a map that already exists in full. It's a comforting image, nothing truly lost, only out of reach, but it also invites unease. If every moment endures, then every choice you've made, each kindness, each mistake, is etched into the cosmos. You can't undo it, but neither can you lose it. Perhaps eternity isn't something ahead of us at all. Perhaps it stretches behind, holding everything that's ever happened in quiet permanence. Still, not everyone agrees with that picture. There's another idea, one more fragile, more human. It says that existence is like the beam of a flashlight sweeping across a dark room. Wherever the beam rests, reality glows into being. The rest remains unlit, not destroyed exactly, but not alive either. In this view, the past isn't sleeping somewhere. It's gone. The light has moved on. This idea, called presentism, matches the way we talk and the way we feel. We say that something was, not that it is. We tell ourselves that what's done is done, that yesterday is over. It brings a certain simplicity to life. Only this moment counts. Only what's here, breathing and visible. But if you look closer, presentism carries a quiet paradox. If only the present exists, then all that made you who you are, the memories, the relationships, the learned gestures, must belong to something that no longer is. And yet, here you are, undeniably shaped by them. It's as though you were built from the dust of vanished worlds. You carry in your voice the tone of a teacher long gone. You cook a dish the way your grandmother once did, without realizing you're repeating her exact motions. How can what's absent still shape what remains? Perhaps it helps to picture it differently. Think of life as a candle burning in darkness. The flame is always now. The wax behind it has melted, transformed into light and air. The wax ahead waits, untouched. The candle's shape changes, but its story continues. The flame doesn't move through time. It creates time, one shining moment at a time. That, in essence, is how the presentist sees the world. The universe doesn't store its moments like files on a disk. It burns through them, leaving warmth and smoke as evidence that they once were. The ashes are the traces, records, memories, fossils. They are what we call the past. They do not exist. They only remind. Still, deep down, you might feel a kind of resistance to that idea. It's too final, too clean. Even if you tell yourself the past is gone, it keeps whispering to you. It lives in the way a scent can suddenly pull you backward in time. The smell of rain on pavement, the sound of a song you hadn't heard in years. For a heartbeat, you're there again. You're not thinking about it. You're feeling it. The boundary between now and then blurs. Maybe that's the real puzzle. It isn't that we can't decide whether the past exists. It's that emotionally we act as though it does. We grieve, we reminisce, we forgive, we hold on to keepsakes. We speak to people who are no longer here, not expecting answers but unable to believe their words are gone forever. If you imagine existence as a line of glowing beads, each representing a moment, presentism says only one bead shines at a time. Eternalism says they all shine at once. Perhaps neither is fully right. Perhaps the universe keeps every bead, but lets only one gleam in our perception, as though consciousness were the dimmer switch that moves across them. Scientists who think in equations might express this as time being a dimension, like height or width. But we can translate that into gentler language. Instead of saying time is the fourth coordinate of space, we might say, time is the direction in which change becomes memory. It's a path through the landscape of being, not a current that carries us away. When you picture it like that, the question, where did the past go, becomes softer. The past didn't vanish, it became structure. The way sediment turns to stone, the way footprints dry into clay. The present walks upon it, and tomorrow will walk upon us. So perhaps the year you're remembering isn't gone. It's simply hidden beneath the next layers of time, like a painting covered by another painting. The colours are still there beneath the surface, faint but enduring. And if we follow the thread a little further, this question about where the past resides will lead us toward the stranger thought that perhaps all of it, past, present and future, coexists in one vast design. A design we can glimpse only from within, frame by frame, heartbeat by heartbeat. Imagine standing in a vast dark room with only a single beam of light in your hand. Wherever you point it, the world becomes visible. Dust motes drift, colours bloom, edges sharpen. Outside that glow, everything is shadow. This, in a way, is how the philosophy called presentism imagines the universe. Only the space within the spotlight is real. The rest, past and future, are unlit, invisible, and therefore non-existent. It sounds simple, even comforting. You can feel it in your daily rhythm. The clock ticks, your breath rises and falls, you act, you speak, you move through one unfolding instant after another. Life feels like a procession of moments that appear, shine briefly, and then fall away. Each one is a small miracle of presence, immediately replaced by the next. You can't go back to this morning's sunlight. You can't step into next week's air. All you ever really touch is the thin film of now, and for many philosophers, that's enough. They say reality itself is a living present, a constantly moving frontier where potential becomes real, and the rest dissolves into nothingness. Picture yourself rowing a boat across a moonlit sea. You face the shore you've left behind. With each stroke, the water ripples and fades in the darkness, and ahead, the future is hidden. You never see where you're going, only where you've been. The oars dip, the waves shimmer briefly, and then they vanish behind you. That too is the presentist's world, a single shining surface moving over the deep black of non-existence. It's an image both poetic and slightly terrifying. Because if the past truly no longer exists, then everything you've ever done, every person you've loved, is not merely distant, it's erased. Not somewhere else, not stored in the universe's archives, but gone. Your first heartbeat, the laughter that once echoed through your childhood home, the faces of those who taught you kindness, all vanished into nothingness the moment the next second arrived. And yet, somehow, you're the proof they were real. The past might not exist, but its consequences live in you like fossils in stone. The language you speak, the fears you carry, even the curve of your handwriting, all are the work of moments that, by this account, no longer are. If the past is truly gone, then how does it continue to shape every move you make? Presentism avoids that question by saying, the past doesn't act, the present does. The past has left traces, causal footprints, but no longer has being. The echoes of what happened are built into what exists now. The scar remains, but the wound no longer does. It's a tidy story, but one that hides a certain sadness. Because when you live in a world that constantly erases itself, every moment feels fragile. The instant you notice something beautiful, a child's laugh, a falling leaf, it's already receding. The presentist universe is made of loss disguised as motion, but perhaps that's also its gift. If reality is only ever now, then the weight of regret lightens. The mistakes of yesterday are gone beyond recovery. What's left is the chance to act, to choose, to begin again. The past can't hold you. It doesn't even exist to do so. You are always standing on fresh ground. There's a kind of mercy in that idea. The world renews itself with every heartbeat. Each breath erases the last, replacing it with something untouched. From that perspective, living becomes an act of continuous creation. You're not carrying a burden of accumulated time, you're writing the universe one instant at a time. Yet, if we pause to think scientifically, we find cracks in this comforting picture. According to relativity, there's no single present shared by everyone. What counts as now depends on how fast you're moving and where you are. Two people travelling at different speeds or standing in distant parts of the universe will slice time differently. One might see two events as simultaneous, the other won't, But let's translate that gently. It means that the spotlight of now isn't universal. It moves differently for each observer. Your now and mine might not perfectly overlap. Imagine the night sky above you. The light from distant stars takes thousands or millions of years to arrive. When you look at them, you're seeing ancient scenes still in progress. A star that appears to twinkle tonight may have burned out long before the first humans walked the Earth. So whose present is the true one? The stars or yours? Presentism begins to tremble under that question. Because if there's no shared moment across space, it becomes hard to claim that only the present exists. Whose present would that be? But before we drift too far into physics, let's return to feeling. The experience of the present is unmistakably real. You can sense it in the small silence between two heartbeats, in the way time seems to stretch during joy and contract during pain. The present is where your attention rests, where your consciousness shines brightest. Maybe that's the point. Perhaps the universe itself doesn't privilege the present, but we do, because that's how our minds navigate existence. The spotlight isn't cosmic, it's human. We carry it with us, sweeping across reality, revealing only a narrow corridor at a time. Think of an old film reel turning in a projector. All the frames exist, but the lamp inside the projector shows only one at a time on the screen. You, the observer, are the light, not the film. You bring the story to life frame by frame. Presentism, then, might not describe the structure of the universe. It might describe the structure of awareness. And awareness, unlike physics, depends on forgetting. The mind must let go of what just happened to make space for what comes next. You can't live in all your moments at once, you'd be overwhelmed. So perhaps the illusion of a flowing present is the price we pay for sanity. Still, when night falls and you lie awake remembering, it's hard not to feel that the past is more than an illusion. It presses against you, heavy with scent and sound. It breathes through photographs and echoes in stories told again and again. Presentism asks you to believe that none of that still is, but your heart whispers otherwise. Maybe that's what makes this idea so tender. It feels both true and impossible. The present is all we can touch, but it's also made of everything we've ever been. Each now carries invisible cargo, memories, causes, futures waiting to unfold. The spotlight doesn't erase what it passes over. It just stops shining there. And if we follow the thread a little further, we begin to suspect that the darkness behind us might not be empty at all, that perhaps the light never really leaves the places it once touched. The next part of our journey will open toward that possibility, a universe where every moment still glows quietly, waiting, side by side. Imagine unrolling a long strip of film across the floor, thousands of tiny images, each one a still moment from your life. The day you were born, your first step, the smell of rain in a summer street, a face you once loved. They're all there, printed frame by frame, waiting. When the projector shines its light, only one frame appears on the wall at a time, giving the illusion of motion. But if you were to stand above the reel, you'd see that every frame exists at once. The whole story is already there, resting quietly in a single unbroken piece. That is how eternalism sees the universe, not as something that flows, but as something already complete. Time, in this view, isn't a river carrying us forward. It's the riverbed itself, every twist and turn already carved into being. We move across it as travellers, but the landscape does not change. When Albert Einstein described the strange geometry of space-time, he accidentally opened the door to this way of thinking. His equations showed that time and space are woven together, forming a single fabric. In that fabric, events don't happen to the universe. They are the universe. There's no grand clock ticking, no universal beat that says, "This is now." Instead, each observer moves through the fabric along their own path, their own rhythm of seconds and heartbeats. In softer words, it means that now is personal. For you, it's the sound of this voice. For someone else, far away, it might still be yesterday or even centuries ago, depending on where and how fast they're moving. When reality is built this way, there can be no single shared moment that divides what exists from what does not. If every observer has a different now, perhaps the universe holds them all equally. It's a dizzying thought, but also strangely serene. Because if every moment exists side by side, then none are ever lost. The morning light that fell across your childhood room is still there somewhere, just beyond your reach, like a note in a song that continues even after you've stopped hearing it. Every second you've lived, every laugh, every breath, still has its place in the great cosmic pattern. You might imagine time as a vast tapestry, threads of light crossing in intricate patterns. Your life is one thread, sometimes running parallel to others, sometimes weaving across them, sometimes fading into distance. The tapestry itself doesn't grow or shrink, it simply is. What we call the flow of time is the way our consciousness travels along that single glowing strand, discovering what's already woven. There's a strange kind of peace in that idea. The universe doesn't forget, it doesn't erase. It keeps everything, every heartbeat, every atom's dance, every flash of joy or pain, locked within its pattern. From this perspective, death isn't a vanishing, it's a transition to a part of the pattern we can no longer see. Somewhere, the version of you who took their first breath is still there, forever taking it. But eternalism also carries a quiet unease. If all moments are equally real, then so is the future, the day you'll say your last words already exist, waiting just as your first did. The question of free will begins to tremble. Are we truly choosing our path, or are we simply moving through a story that's already written? Some philosophers say that freedom still fits inside the block universe. Your choices are part of the tapestry, threads that could not have been otherwise because they are you. Just because the pattern exists doesn't mean you didn't weave it. The fact that your decisions are already there in space-time doesn't make them any less yours. It simply means the act of choosing is another feature of the design. To make it gentler, imagine you're watching a movie you've already seen. You know how it ends, but the characters within the story don't. They still make their choices with sincerity and urgency. Within their world, everything feels open. Perhaps our lives are the same, already whole from one perspective, yet unfolding moment by moment from another. You might wonder whether that makes time meaningless. If everything already is, what's the point of change? But even in a completed painting, each colour matters. The beauty lies not in rewriting the canvas, but in how each stroke contributes to the whole. The fact that the universe is timeless doesn't make it lifeless. It means that existence is a kind of stillness so large we can't feel it all at once. The philosopher Hermann Minkowski, who helped give mathematics its shape of space-time, once said that space and time are no longer separate. They merge into a single entity. Einstein later echoed that view, suggesting that the distinction between past, present and future may be a stubborn illusion. But we don't need their equations to understand the feeling. It's like watching snow fall under a street lamp. Each flake drifts at its own pace, each one unique, yet together they create a scene that seems both frozen and in motion at once. In an eternal universe, nothing is destroyed, but nothing truly begins either. It just is. The bloom of a flower and its withering are both threads in the same pattern. The birth of a star and its death in fire are part of the same chord of cosmic music. And for us, the listeners within the melody, that can be both humbling and beautiful. It means you are, in some sense, everlasting, not as a single continuous flame, but as all the sparks you have ever been. The smile you gave a stranger 10 years ago, the thought you'll have tomorrow, they coexist, quiet and unhurried, somewhere in the fabric of everything. Still, even as this vision comforts, it distances. If the universe is frozen in its perfection, where does that leave the warmth of becoming? the feeling of change, of growth, of discovering something new. The eternal tapestry offers peace, but at the price of surprise. Some minds find solace in its stillness, others crave the living pulse of an unfinished story. Perhaps both can be true. Perhaps we live inside the tapestry while still feeling the brush of the needle as it moves. Maybe time is both, the finished pattern and the act of weaving. We can't step outside to see it whole, but we can sense its texture under our fingers in every passing moment. And as we drift further into the story, the question becomes softer, more human. If the past and future are woven alongside the present, could it be that reality itself is still growing? That the universe, while complete in form, continues to unfold from within, adding thread upon thread in a quiet act of creation? The path now carries us toward that gentle middle ground, neither vanishing past nor frozen eternity, but something still being written, one shining moment at a time. If we imagine the eternal tapestry is already finished, every thread in its place, there's a quiet perfection to it, but also a stillness that feels almost too complete. We live in motion, not in marble. The heart doesn't beat all at once, it beats in rhythm. Maybe that's why another picture of time has always held a certain warmth. The idea that the universe is still writing itself moment by moment. This view is sometimes called the growing block theory. You can think of it as a vast book that's being written even now. The chapters that have already been set down, the past, remain safe in their binding. The chapter you're living through now is being inked in real time, each word joining the story as you breathe. The future chapters are blank, not yet imagined, waiting for the pen to touch the page. It's a comforting idea because it feels close to how we experience life. The past doesn't vanish, it solidifies. The present is alive, warm, changing. The future isn't fixed, which leaves space for hope and choice. In this universe, your childhood laughter, the smell of an old classroom, the echoes of civilizations long gone, all still exist, preserved within the earlier pages of the book. But the next line of your story hasn't been written yet. You might picture the growing block as a crystal expanding outward from its centre. Each new layer forms solidly around the old, encasing what has been while leaving the edge, the present, still in motion. The outermost surface is where existence happens. Inside lies everything that ever was, unbroken and permanent, and outside lies pure possibility, still waiting to take shape. There's something deeply human about this vision. It captures both our longing for permanence and our hunger for change. The past matters. It's the foundation we build on. But the future remains open to our hands. We're neither trapped in a frozen block nor lost in a vanishing stream. We are the edge of becoming. If you've ever painted a wall, you've seen a simple version of this. The section you've already brushed is dry and finished. The part beneath your hand is alive with motion and colour. The untouched area ahead is still potential. You can't unpaint what's behind you, but each stroke you make now determines how the next will look. The world, under the growing block, is a painting that never stops drying. But as with all beautiful pictures, there's a small crack hidden within. If the universe is continuously adding new slices of time, what is the rhythm that allows that growth? Is there another kind of clock, some meta-time, ticking above the universe, measuring how reality itself expands? And if there is, does that mean there's an even higher layer beyond it, a meta-time where that clock lives? The mind can chase that ladder upward forever, each question birthing another. We can translate that puzzle into something more tangible. Imagine building a tower out of wooden blocks. You stack one on top of another, each resting firmly on what came before. The tower grows, but so does the timeline of your building. There's the time inside the tower, each level representing a moment of its own, and the time outside the tower, the rhythm of your hands placing the next block. If the universe is the tower, where are the hands? who or what adds the next slice of reality? Some physicists argue that the question itself might not make sense. Growth could be an illusion we perceive because of how our minds process change. To the universe, they suggest, the entire structure might already exist, the completed tower, and the feeling of growth is simply the way we climb it. Yet others see no contradiction. They picture time as something that builds itself, a self-weaving thread that adds new moments as a result of the ones before, the way a melody generates its next note by resolving the last. You can sense this when you listen to music. The song doesn't exist all at once in your ears. It unfolds. Each chord makes space for the next, and by the end, the silence after the final note holds everything that came before. The growing block universe works like that. The score already written so far can't be erased, but the tune continues to emerge with every beat. For us, this middle ground feels right. It honours the permanence of the past, the lives, the choices, the worlds that shaped us, but it keeps alive the sense that tomorrow is truly new. You're not merely rereading a script, you're co-authoring it as you live. Your decisions, your kindnesses, your courage, they matter not because they change a pre-written story, but because they are the very act of writing it. It also gives comfort to the idea of memory. When you remember someone who's gone, their chapter still exists. You can't step into it, but it hasn't been erased. It rests behind the present, solid and complete. The love you shared, the words you said, the laughter, they're still part of the block, sealed but enduring. The growing block picture also explains why the past feels heavy. Each new moment rests on everything that came before. When history repeats itself, when an emotion returns, it's not that time circles, it's that the layers echo each other, like patterns in wood grain. Each instant contains the weight of its ancestry. And yet, for all its poetry, this theory can't escape mystery. The edge of now remains slippery. We can never freeze it. By the time we say this is the present, it's already gone. Even in a universe that builds itself, the builder never stops moving. Maybe that's the secret. Perhaps the growing block isn't something happening to the universe, it's the universe happening to itself. Reality creates time the way a fire creates warmth, naturally and without plan. The flame doesn't need a schedule to burn. Its very being is the act of changing. In that way, the growing block view blends the emotional truth of the presentist with the serene endurance of the eternalist. The past is preserved. The future is unwritten. The present is the artist's hand, trembling slightly as it paints the next stroke. And if we listen closely, we might sense that the universe is still at work right now, expanding, building, thickening with experience. Each second you live joins the foundation of what already is. Behind you, nothing vanishes. It only becomes stable. Ahead, nothing yet exists, and that's where possibility sleeps. Our quiet exploration now turns to how physics itself looks at these three visions, how the laws of nature agree with some, contradict others, and sometimes seem to step beyond all of them, revealing a picture of time far stranger than any we can imagine. If you leave a cup of coffee on the table long enough, it cools. The warmth drifts away, the steam fades into the air, and the perfect swirl of cream you stirred so carefully disappears into soft brown. It's such a small, ordinary thing, but in that quiet act of cooling, the universe is doing something profound. It's telling time. You can feel it in every change around you, the melting of ice, the fading of scent, the way a clean room inevitably gathers dust. There's a hidden rhythm behind these transformations, one that physicists call the arrow of time. And the arrow's secret name, whispered in the language of science, is entropy. We don't need equations to know what entropy is. You can picture it instead as the universe's tendency to scatter its cards, to take what is ordered and gently rearrange it into disorder. When you break an egg, it splashes outward, and the pieces never quite fall back into place. When you mix milk into coffee, It swirls and blends until the two become one. The process always moves in a single direction, toward spreading, toward mixing, toward the loss of distinction. This one-way unfolding gives time its sense of motion. It's not the ticking of a clock that makes you feel time passing. It's the quiet certainty that the coffee will cool, not warm itself, that your footprints stay behind you, not in front. In every moment, energy disperses, patterns dissolve, and the universe grows a little more uncertain about the exact details of itself. You might say that entropy is how the universe keeps its diary. Every increase leaves behind a trace, a faint mark of what once was. The cooled coffee, the wilted flower, the worn stone on an ancient path, they are the universe's handwriting, a record written in the slow script of change. Think about your own life for a second. The reason you remember the past but not the future is because of these traces. The brain, the body, the world, they all accumulate records in one direction only. A memory forms as energy flows and patterns shift. Your neurons arrange themselves into a new configuration that holds an echo of what happened. But there's no mechanism that writes such traces backward. The future hasn't yet left fingerprints on us. Entropy is the silent reason why you can't unbake a loaf of bread or unscramble a thought. It's why photographs fade but never spontaneously sharpen. The past leaves artifacts, the future leaves none. In that sense, the entire flow of time, the feeling that moments march forward, is the shadow cast by entropy's climb. Imagine standing beside a river. You throw a handful of sand into the water. It spreads, carried by the current, its grains drifting apart until they vanish from view. That's entropy at work, the movement from structure to scattering. If you tried to collect those grains again, to restore the handful exactly as it was, you'd have to reverse every ripple, every eddy, every interaction between water and wind. You'd have to make the world run backward. And yet, the laws of physics, when written down, don't care about forward or backward. They are symmetric, timeless, almost indifferent. If you could play them in reverse, the math would still hold. So why then do we experience one direction and not the other? Why does time have a preference for the future? The answer lies in what physicists sometimes call the initial condition, a phrase that, in plain language, means the universe began in an extraordinary state of order. Long ago, in the first fraction of a second after the beginning, matter and energy were astonishingly smooth, like the surface of still water. That smoothness set the stage for everything that followed. From that simplicity, disorder could only increase, and so it did. Every star that formed, every planet that cooled, every heartbeat that ever happened, each was a step down that slope of increasing complexity and spreading energy. You can think of it this way. The cosmos began as a neat deck of cards, perfectly stacked. The shuffle started, and it has never stopped. Every new arrangement adds information, adds texture, but never returns the cards to their original state. Entropy is the measure of how thoroughly the deck has been mixed. But let's soften that image. Instead of cards, imagine a beautiful painting slowly touched by time, the colours blending, the lines fading, the surface cracking into patterns of age. The painting loses clarity yet gains depth. The story of entropy isn't only one of decay, it's also the story of transformation. Out of the spreading energy, stars ignite. Out of collapse, life learns to rise. The universe's way of wearing out is also its way of creating. So when you think of entropy, don't picture destruction, picture evolution, the endless remixing of matter and light. The arrow of time is not an executioner's blade, it's a brushstroke. Every rise and fall, every beginning and ending adds to the canvas of existence. Still, this process gives our memories their direction. You can't remember tomorrow because it hasn't left any marks yet, but you can remember yesterday because the marks are all around you, on your skin, in your heartbeat, in the sunlight filtered through dust. Entropy doesn't just push us forward, it builds the staircase we climb. Every photograph, every fossil, every whisper of ancient starlight that reaches your eyes tonight, they're all entries in the universe's diary. The handwriting is messy, but it's unmistakable. It says, I was here, I changed, I moved forward, and if you listen carefully, you can almost hear the hum of that record being written. The faint hiss of energy equalizing, the quiet fall of order into possibility. It's the sound of everything aging together. But physics, as always, hides another secret behind the simplicity. If entropy is the author of time's arrow, then why do the deepest laws of nature not include an arrow at all? The equations describing gravity, motion and light don't prefer one direction. They work just as well backward. It's as if time itself were a still fabric, and entropy's flow was simply the direction we've chosen to walk upon it. Perhaps time doesn't truly flow. Perhaps it stands and we move. Or perhaps neither moves, and what we call passing is the way we read the unfolding of change. And so, as the coffee cools and the stars burn down their fuel, the universe continues to write. Every atom participates, every action leaves a trace, and yet, in the deep silence of the equations, there's a whisper that unsettles everything we've just said. A whisper that maybe, in some ultimate sense, there is no forward or backward, only the shape of a timeless whole. If we follow that current of thought, it carries us gently toward the next idea, the realization that now itself might be an illusion, a shape carved by motion through that still fabric. The next step of our quiet journey is to see how relativity reshapes the meaning of the present, and how even the word now begins to dissolve when the universe tells its side of the story. If you were to look up at the night sky and point toward a distant star, the light reaching your eyes in this moment may have left that star hundreds or even thousands of years ago. You are, in a very real sense, looking into the past. But the strangest part is that someone standing near that star looking back toward Earth would see an entirely different now. For them, your present moment might still be far in their future. This is the quiet revolution Albert Einstein began more than a century ago. The realization that time is not universal. There is no single cosmic drumbeat marking a shared present. Time flows differently for everyone, depending on how they move, where they are, and what gravity is doing around them. It's a hard idea to hold in your hands, so let's soften it. Imagine two lightning bolts striking opposite ends of a long train. To a person standing on the ground, the flashes appear to happen at the same time, but to someone sitting on the train, moving toward one strike and away from the other, the light from the first flash reaches them before the second. Both observers are right. There is no hidden clock in the universe to declare one of them mistaken. The order of events depends on where you stand and how you move through space. Einstein's insight turned the world upside down, but it also gave it shape. Time and space, once thought to be separate, turned out to be woven together, like threads of the same fabric. The faster you move, the more that fabric stretches and tilts beneath you. Your seconds lengthen or shorten, depending on your motion. But don't think of it as mechanical stretching. Think of it as a subtle rhythm. Time and space dance together, and the tempo depends on how you join this music. You can feel this dance in tiny, imperceptible ways. A clock on an airplane ticks a little slower than one on the ground. A clock at the top of a mountain ticks a little faster than one in a valley. Even your head, slightly farther from Earth's gravity, experiences time just a touch faster than your feet. The difference is too small for you to notice, but it's real enough that the satellites guiding your phone's navigation must account for it. Without those tiny corrections, every map on Earth would drift by miles each day. All of this sounds complicated, but the story it tells is simple. Now is not a single slice shared by the universe. Each person, each place, each heartbeat has its own now. The present, it turns out, is as personal as a fingerprint. Think of time as a vast loaf of bread. Each slice is a moment, filled with all the events happening at that instant. You and I might not agree on exactly which slice we're standing in, because the loaf doesn't cut itself the same way for everyone. The direction we move, the speed we travel, even the pull of the stars, all of it bends our slice at a slightly different angle. If you take a slow walk down a quiet street, this effect becomes almost poetic. In the so-called Andromeda paradox, your gentle pace could change which distant galaxies are happening right now from your point of view. For you, a decision being made on a planet 2 million light-years away might already be occurring, while for someone walking the other direction, that same event might still lie in the future. Of course, neither of you could ever know or prove it. The distances are too great, the light too slow, but the mathematics of relativity says it's true. Your steps, tiny as they seem, shift your relationship to the stars. It's humbling to think that a simple motion, a human walk, can alter the geometry of now. The present is not a thin line dividing past and future. It's a tilted surface that changes shape depending on who's looking. The universe, in a way, is a grand quilt stitched from countless overlapping presents, each one slightly misaligned. Where they intersect, we meet. Where they diverge, we drift apart. This lack of a universal present leads to a gentle but startling conclusion. Perhaps time doesn't flow the way we imagine. If there's no shared now, then maybe all moments, past, present and future, exist together in the same vast structure, each waiting for its observer. The feeling of moving forward could be just the way consciousness travels through that structure, lighting up one corridor at a time. Try imagining yourself standing still while the universe turns like a giant kaleidoscope around you. Each twist reveals a new pattern, but all the shapes already exist within the glass. Your experience of time, the sequence of moments, might be the unfolding of that rotation. You're not moving through time so much as watching different parts of a timeless design come into view. Einstein once wrote that for those who truly understand physics, the separation between past, present and future is only a stubborn illusion. But illusion doesn't mean false. It means something that feels real because it's how our senses interpret the world. Time feels like motion because we are creatures of change. Our hearts beat, our thoughts flicker, our memories stack one upon another. Even if the universe holds every moment at once, we still have to live them one by one. Perhaps the most poetic expression of relativity is that every observer carries their own map of time, a private coordinate grid that no one else can share perfectly. In your map, the stars trace slow arcs overhead. In another's, they tilt and shift differently. There's no master version to compare against. The universe is fair to all perspectives. It gives each its own truth. And there's beauty in that fairness. It means that your now is not small. It's a vast personal landscape stretching out in every direction, defined by where you stand. The person next to you inhabits a slightly different landscape, and yet they overlap enough for your voices to meet in the same breath. Even disagreement in this cosmic sense is a form of harmony. Relativity doesn't steal time's mystery, it deepens it. It tells us that we live inside a fabric flexible enough to cradle every viewpoint at once. We are not prisoners of a single ticking clock. We are travellers moving at our own pace across a shared but uneven terrain. So when you gaze at the stars tonight, remember that some of the light touching your eyes began its journey before the first cities were built, before language found its rhythm, before you were even imagined. To those stars, your entire life may unfold in an instant. To you, their ancient fire is still arriving, patient and unchanged. If now depends on where you stand, then the universe isn't a river we drift along. It's an ocean where every wave is already present, and we, small swimmers, simply feel one crest at a time. From here, the story flows naturally toward another question. If there's no single present, if the world keeps all its moments at once, then how can we still feel the pull of yesterday? What gives the past its grip, its power to shape us, if it may be no more real than tomorrow? Our quiet exploration now turns toward that invisible architecture of cause and memory, the fingerprints that the past leaves on every breath of the present. Every sound you hear right now, every word, every hum in the air exists because of a long, unbroken chain of events stretching backward through time. The light in your room comes from a bulb powered by a current that began in some distant generator, whose rotation depends on turbines turned by wind or water, themselves moved by heat from the sun, which burns because of fusion, which exists because of the collapse of stars that died billions of years ago. You sitting here are the consequence of ancient stars losing their balance. You are proof that the past, whatever else it may be, still reaches out and shapes the present, causality. That's the quiet thread that binds every moment to the next. It's not a formula, it's the simple, universal truth that things happen because other things happened first. A spark leads to a flame. A word spoken becomes a thought in another mind. The past, whether it exists as a physical thing or not, leaves fingerprints on everything that follows. Try imagining reality as a wall of layered paint. The first strokes lie buried, invisible now, but without them the later colours wouldn't have depth. The present is that outermost coat, fresh, bright, still drying. But press your hand against it, and you can feel the texture of what lies beneath. That texture is causality, the shape of the past pressing upward through each new layer. Think of how you got here, listening to this voice. A lifetime of small moments had to align. Choices, coincidences, perhaps pure chance. Maybe a teacher sparked your curiosity years ago. Maybe a friend mentioned this channel. Maybe your sleepless mind simply reached for something quiet tonight. Each of those moments is gone, yet somehow they still guide this one. They're invisible architects of the present. If the past no longer exists as the presentist insists, how does it manage to hold such power? How can something absent dictate what happens now? It's a paradox that even physics can't easily escape. The equations describing how things move, how light bends, how matter interacts, all of them rely on what came before. They need starting conditions, like a story needs its first sentence. Without the past, the present would have nothing to inherit. But maybe existence doesn't work like ownership. Maybe the past doesn't need to exist as a place or an object to exert its influence. Maybe its role is more like that of a ghost composer whose music continues to play long after they're gone. The melody doesn't need the musician to be present. It just needs the notes to keep resonating. Causality gives us that melody. It's the continuity between beats, the reason why the second note follows the first. The whole universe hums with that rhythm. When a supernova explodes, the shockwave seeds space with heavier elements that someday form planets, oceans, and lungs. When a drop of water falls from a leaf, it disturbs a single molecule, which in turn nudges another and another until the ripple touches everything. The past isn't behind us, it's inside everything around us, echoing forward in the smallest tremors of cause and effect. It's the same in your own body. The calcium in your bones was forged in the heart of a dying star. The air you breathe has been exhaled by trees, oceans, and countless other living things. Every atom carries a history older than the planet itself. In that sense, you are a walking archive of cosmic memory. Even if time's flow is an illusion, you are living evidence of what that illusion has built. The beauty of causality is that it doesn't require permanence. It only requires connection. You don't need the past to still be there for its effects to ripple through. A stone tossed into a pond disappears beneath the surface, but the circles spread outward long after. The ripples are the past translated into motion. Still, causality has its mysteries. In the equations of physics, cause and effect are often reversible. If you filmed 2 billiard balls colliding and then played the film backward, it would look perfectly possible. The motion fits the laws just as neatly in reverse. So where then does the arrow come from? Why do we feel the weight of history pressing forward and not back? The answer may lie once again in entropy, the storyteller from our previous chapter. When energy spreads, when order fades, new possibilities multiply, and those possibilities, once opened, can't be neatly shut. The ink has spilled. The story can't unwrite itself. The laws might allow both directions, but the universe seems to prefer the one that builds more variety, more texture, more ways for things to happen. That's why cause feels older than effect. The spreading of possibility gives direction to the song. Still, there's a strange softness in that realization. It means the past isn't a fixed library, but an ongoing influence, more like the foundation beneath a city than a set of frozen rooms. You can tear down old buildings and raise new ones, but the shape of the streets below still guides where the new roads run. Even if we can't see the old map, we're still following it. This also explains something deep about memory. Memory isn't a door back into the past. It's a new creation built in the present, sculpted from traces. Every time you recall something, your brain rebuilds it using the patterns still resonating inside you. That's why memories blur and change. The original moment is gone, but the forces it set in motion remain, rearranging themselves again and again. So perhaps the past's existence isn't about whether it still sits somewhere in space-time. Perhaps it exists through its ability to keep shaping what comes next. To influence might be the truest form of being. The past doesn't live behind us, it lives through us. Each heartbeat is a pulse inherited from a million prior ones, each thought a continuation of others long extinguished. And yet, there's another layer of mystery waiting below this comforting picture. Because as physics keeps digging deeper into the subatomic and the quantum, even the idea of cause and effect begins to shimmer and blur. Down there, time sometimes seems to hesitate, as if waiting to decide which direction it truly wants to run. Imagine peering into that depth and finding that the chain of causes doesn't always go in order, that sometimes the outcome seems to whisper back to its origin, adjusting it just so the story stays consistent. That's the realm we're about to enter, where even the past itself seems to pause for a moment, uncertain of whether it's finished being written. From here, the story opens into the smallest scales of existence, where particles wander through possibilities and reality, for a brief shimmering moment, forgets which way time is supposed to flow. Picture a coin suspended in mid-air. It spins and flashes in the light, not yet heads or tails, only potential. You could swear the outcome already exists, that gravity, friction and chance have already chosen their winner. But until it lands, both sides seem possible. That single instant of uncertainty, the moment before decision, is where the strange world of quantum physics begins. For most of daily life, reality feels stable. Your table is where you left it. Your coffee stays in the cup. The moon doesn't suddenly decide to appear as 2 moons just because no one's looking. But the deeper we peer into the building blocks of nature, the electrons, photons, and tiny grains of matter that compose everything, the more slippery existence becomes. The universe, at its smallest scales, behaves more like our spinning coin than a solid sculpture. It hovers between possibilities, never choosing until something, or someone, observes it. Scientists describe this in many ways, often with equations too delicate for the human ear. But we can translate the idea gently. Before a measurement, a particle is not in one place or another. It's spread out, like a cloud of maybes. When you look, the cloud vanishes and one outcome appears. The act of observing is like catching the coin mid-air. The simple act of looking, of interacting, collapses the shimmer of possibility into a single result. It's hard not to feel there's some kind of magic in that. You might wonder, was the particle waiting for me to look? Did my awareness pull it into being? That thought has haunted physicists and philosophers alike for nearly a century. Some insist it's not about consciousness, only about interaction. Whenever one part of the universe bumps into another, the cloud of maybes turns into something definite. Others think there's something deeply personal about observation, that we are participants in the act of creation. Either way, what we call reality is less like a finished painting, and more like a painting that completes itself only when someone gazes upon it. The strokes, the colours, the form, they were all possibilities, waiting for an eye to give them focus. To understand how strange this can get, imagine an experiment both simple and unbelievable. A beam of light is sent toward a wall with two narrow openings. If you close one opening, the light passes through the other, forming a neat, predictable spot on a screen. But if you open both, the light behaves differently. It creates ripples of brightness and shadow, as if each photon were a tiny wave interfering with itself. It's as though the light went through both openings at once. Now soften this image even further. The photon is not a point darting through space, but a whisper of possibilities exploring all paths simultaneously. It doesn't decide on a route until something detects it. The universe seems to say, both paths are real, until you ask me to choose. This is the quantum cloud, a realm where things are not things but tendencies, a haze of potentialities dancing with invisible grace. Every particle in your body, every atom in the stars exists within this shimmering uncertainty. And somehow, from that delicate fog, the solid world emerges. You might ask, why don't we see this uncertainty in our everyday lives? Why doesn't your morning toast appear in several places at once until you look at it? The answer is that the dance of possibilities is astonishingly fast and happens on scales too small to feel. In larger systems, where trillions of particles jostle together, the uncertainties average out. The world seems definite because countless quantum whispers blend into a single chorus of stability. But that illusion of stability hides the wonder beneath. Beneath your feet, beneath the chair you sit on, beneath the atoms of your bones, everything hums with possibility. Even when you think you're sitting still, the smallest parts of you are in constant dialogue with the potential versions of themselves. It's worth pausing here to realize what that means for time. If reality at its foundation is a cloud of could be, then maybe the unfolding of time is nothing more than those possibilities collapsing into facts. Each second might be the universe deciding on its next word, solidifying one outcome among the countless stories it could have told. Time's arrow could simply be the steady rhythm of decisions made by reality itself. Of course, decision is just a human metaphor. The universe doesn't deliberate, it behaves. But the metaphor helps us see the poetry in the process. When you toss a coin, when you roll a die, when you speak a sentence, each event follows the same hidden rule. The future doesn't fully exist until it's chosen, and that choice, in the quantum sense, is what keeps the story moving forward. If we stretch our imagination a bit, we can think of ourselves as part of this grand conversation. Every breath you take, every thought that passes through your mind is a small measurement, a moment where potential becomes real. The observer and the observed are entangled, not separate, but different sides of the same unfolding fabric. You could picture the whole universe as an ocean of mist, each wave a possibility overlapping with others. Observation, the gentle act of interacting, noticing, touching, turns mist into water, water into ice, possibility into memory, and perhaps this process never stops. Every time you notice something, the universe narrows its options ever so slightly, sculpting itself into the world you know. There's a quiet beauty in that idea, that reality is not fixed, but participatory. You're not merely drifting through the cosmos, watching it happen. You are helping it happen. The photon's path, the cat's nap, the whisper of air molecules brushing your skin, everything waits. in some mysterious sense, for its moment to be realised. But as strange as this sounds, we must tread carefully. The universe doesn't depend on our eyes to exist. Even without us, stars still burn, planets still orbit, and light still travels. What quantum theory teaches is subtler, that the difference between what might be and what is emerges only through interaction. The world isn't drawn by a single painter. It's a collaboration among all things. Still, one question lingers like a soft echo in a large hall. What if the decision that determines the past doesn't always happen before the present? What if, at least in the quantum realm, the choice of what reality becomes can reach backward, subtly shaping what we thought had already been decided? It sounds impossible, but experiments have hinted at exactly that. The story of those experiments, where the universe seems to wait for us to choose what has already happened, is one of the strangest and most beautiful in modern science. The trail of clues leads us gently into that story next, a tale where light itself seems to whisper back from the future, reminding us that even the past may not be as settled as we think. Imagine a single particle of light, a photon, leaving its home, perhaps from the surface of a distant star, or maybe from the small glow of a laboratory lamp. It begins its journey toward a pair of narrow slits in a screen, the same kind used in countless physics experiments. You could picture those slits as two open doors. The photon approaches, and the universe seems to pause, waiting to see which door it will choose. If you block one slit, the photon behaves like a tiny marble. It travels straight through the open path, hits the screen behind, and makes a single, simple mark. But if you leave both doors open, something wondrous happens. The photon no longer behaves as if it picked one path. It seems to have taken both. The marks on the screen form delicate bands of light and shadow, the telltale pattern of a wave interfering with itself. It's as if the photon walked through both doors and then met itself on the other side. This by itself is already strange enough. But now let's add one more twist. The kind of twist that would make even time itself lean forward to listen. In a version of this experiment known as the delayed choice quantum eraser, scientists send the photon toward the two doors and then, only after it has passed through, decide whether or not to measure which path it took. And somehow, the results change, depending on that later choice. If the observers choose to find out which slit the photon used, the interference pattern disappears. The light acts as if it only went through one door, but if the observers choose not to ask, the pattern reappears, as though the photon had travelled both routes all along. The most astonishing part? This decision happens after the photon has already hit the screen. The measurement in the present seems to decide what story the past will tell. It's tempting to imagine the photon whispering back through time. Tell me how you'll look at me, and I'll decide who I was. But that's just poetry. No signal truly travels backward. What the experiment shows, softly but profoundly, is that in the quantum world, the boundary between past and present is not as sharp as we think. The act of measurement doesn't rewrite history. It simply finalizes which version of history becomes real. To translate this into everyday language, think of a detective solving a mystery. Before they uncover the final clue, several stories seem possible. Each piece of evidence could fit more than one explanation, but when the last clue is found, suddenly the entire narrative makes sense. The ending didn't change the past, it revealed which past had been true all along. In the same way, the quantum world seems to keep several drafts of reality open until observation closes the case. You might picture the universe as a storyteller keeping multiple outlines on its desk. When you look, it chooses one and files the rest away. The story was always consistent, but the act of reading determined which draft entered the archive. It's worth remembering that this experiment doesn't allow us to send messages to the past or change what already happened. It simply shows that the language of before and after begins to blur when we speak of the smallest things. In the realm of particles, time behaves less like a straight line and more like a woven fabric, where threads can twist and overlap before settling into a pattern we can see. And though the quantum world feels distant from our daily lives, its lessons quietly touch everything. The stable table under your hand, the light reaching your eyes, the heartbeat pulsing in your chest, all are built from this restless dance of possibilities resolving into fact. The certainty you experience is the sum of countless quantum decisions, each collapsing into a single story so that you can live in a world that feels solid. Still, the idea that the present can influence how we describe the past has a strange resonance beyond physics. In your own life, memories shift depending on how you look at them. Tell a story about yourself one way, and it becomes a tragedy. Tell it another way, and it becomes a lesson, even a small triumph. The events don't change, but their meaning, their shape in your mind does. Perhaps the universe and consciousness share this curious symmetry. Both seem to finish writing their stories only when they are observed, interpreted, remembered. The philosopher John Wheeler, who first proposed the delayed choice idea, once said, "No phenomenon is a phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon. In gentler words, nothing is truly finished until the universe has witnessed it." The act of seeing, of interacting, doesn't just reveal reality, it completes it. Imagine the cosmos as a giant book written in disappearing ink. The words appear only when someone runs their finger across the page. Observation, in that sense, is the gentle warmth that brings the text to life. The story isn't altered by reading it, it's revealed. Perhaps then, we're not separate from the universe's story, we're the eyes it uses to see itself. It can feel almost mystical, but this isn't magic. It's simply how nature behaves when you look closely enough. Each photon, each atom, participates in a dialogue between potential and actuality. The delay in choosing what to measure is like asking the universe a question and finding that the answer echoes backward, clarifying not what will happen, but what already did. If we step back, it becomes clear that this experiment doesn't really show the future changing the past. Instead, it reminds us that our human sense of time order may not be fundamental. We think of moments stacked like dominoes, each falling in sequence. But perhaps reality is more like a painting where every colour touches every other, forming a picture that only makes sense when seen as a whole. In that picture, cause and effect are still there, but they share the same space, intertwined like threads in fabric. The photon doesn't rewrite its journey. It simply belongs to a world where the journey and the destination are part of one continuous pattern. And yet, there's something quietly beautiful in imagining that even the smallest pieces of light carry a kind of patience. They don't rush to decide who they are. They wait, suspended between stories, until the moment arrives when the universe needs to know. It makes you wonder if reality itself has always been like that. Patient, uncertain, allowing possibilities to linger until they're needed. Perhaps that's what time is, the slow settling of cosmic questions into answers. Each second is a resolution, a word written into the diary of existence. So when you gaze at the world around you, the reflections in a window, the light bouncing off the pages of a book, you're not just seeing the present, you're witnessing the universe mid-decision, choosing again and again how to be. And as we follow this thread deeper, we arrive at an even subtler question. If the quantum world hesitates between possibilities, could it mean that the past itself is never completely fixed? That history, like a wave, remains slightly in motion, settling only when the universe, or perhaps consciousness, turns its attention that way. The story continues to blur, to shimmer, to open. From solid facts to flickering probabilities, from memory to mystery, the path now carries us toward the edge of what we can know. the delicate border between what has happened and what is still deciding whether it has. If you stand at the edge of a lake at dawn and toss a stone into the still water, ripples move outward in gentle rings. They fade and disappear, but for a few moments you can see both directions at once, the memory of where the stone entered and the pattern it leaves behind. The surface doesn't forget. It reshapes itself around what has happened. The universe, in its own quiet way, might do the same. The experiments we've just drifted through hint that the past is not a locked vault but something more fluid, something that can shimmer and settle depending on how we look at it. In the familiar world of everyday life, the past feels like solid ground. You can't unbake bread, unbreak glass, or unsay a word. But at the smallest scales of existence, that solidity begins to blur. Down in the quantum sea, where the rules of certainty dissolve, the past sometimes behaves like a wave that hasn't finished rippling. That might sound poetic, but the physics behind it is both subtle and real. When we said earlier that observation determines how a particle's story is told, we weren't just being fanciful. The quantum equations, those delicate recipes of probability, don't specify what is until the moment of interaction. And crucially, they don't forbid the past from remaining uncertain until that interaction occurs. To translate this softly, imagine a sculptor shaping a statue from fog. Each stroke of their hands gives the mist form, but even after a shape appears, the edges keep shifting slightly, as though the work is never entirely finished. The quantum past resembles that. The outlines of events exist, but they can waver until the universe settles on a version. This doesn't mean that your own past is flickering in and out of reality, that yesterday might rewrite itself while you sleep. At larger scales, where trillions upon trillions of particles move together, all those uncertainties overlap and cancel out. The noise becomes a solid tone. That's why your cup of coffee stays a cup of coffee and doesn't decide halfway through the morning to become something else. Stability is simply the sum of endless small uncertainties, harmonizing into certainty. But zoom in far enough, and even that harmony trembles. A single atom in your coffee doesn't have a fixed position until it interacts with something. Another atom, a photon of light, the wall of the cup. In that brief interval before contact, the atoms past and future are like parallel drafts of the same story. Once the meeting occurs, one version is chosen, the others fade and time resumes its familiar march. When we speak of this scientifically, it's tempting to use language like probability waves or state, collapse, but in gentler words, what's happening is that reality keeps its options open. Every event is like a sentence that ends only when the universe reaches its period. Until then, it holds its breath. It's strange to think that certainty might be an afterthought, that the universe doesn't predefine every detail but rather allows itself to improvise, moment to moment, until something, an interaction, an observer, a measurement settles the tune. The past in that view is not gone, but still humming faintly, waiting for the final note. You can feel echoes of this in your own mind. Memory, after all, works much the same way. Each time you remember something, your brain doesn't pull a perfect file from storage, it rebuilds the scene from scattered fragments. New emotions, new contexts, even new knowledge reshape it slightly. The event itself doesn't change, but its reconstruction does. What you recall is not the fixed past, but the present version of that past. The physicist's uncertainty and the human one begin to rhyme. If you think about it this way, maybe the past isn't a museum filled with preserved artifacts, it's a living forest. Old trees fall, new ones grow, sunlight shifts across the leaves. The general landscape remains, but the details breathe. History, like nature, may be more alive than we realize, and yet, the notion that the past could ever be unfixed makes us uneasy. We find comfort in closure. We like to believe that what's done is done, that our lives have a definite shape behind us. Without that, the story feels incomplete. But perhaps incompleteness is exactly what gives time its beauty. If everything were fixed, there would be no space for change. no reason for growth, no meaning in choice. You can think of the universe as a canvas that paints itself in layers. The newest paint is still wet. It glistens, reflects light, holds potential. The older layers have hardened, but even those can crack or shift as the painting ages. In places, the artist may return and touch them again, not erasing but blending them into something new. The artwork, like time itself, is both finished and unfinished at once. In this sense, the quantum realm doesn't contradict our experience, it deepens it. It tells us that the world is not merely a sequence of facts, but a process of continual refinement. The past informs the present, but the present, by how it perceives and interacts, can give shape to how that past is defined. It's not a reversal of cause and effect, it's a partnership. The universe is in conversation with itself across the thin membranes of time, and maybe, just maybe, that's why memory exists at all. It's not a static archive, but a bridge, a way for the present to negotiate with the past, to keep refining its meaning. When you remember something painful and finally understand it differently, you're not changing the event itself, you're altering how it lives in the pattern of your world. In that sense, you too participate in rewriting the universe's narrative gently through understanding. The more scientists explore this, the clearer it becomes that our ordinary sense of the past behind us and the future ahead might be more about perspective than truth. Reality may be a single vast web, every point connected to every other, vibrating in mutual influence. From where we stand, those vibrations feel directional, past to future, but that may simply be the path our consciousness takes through the web. And when you look at it like that, the universe becomes almost compassionate. It doesn't trap us in what has been. It allows flexibility, softness, reinterpretation. The past may be unfixed, not in the sense of instability, but in the sense of openness, a willingness to keep becoming what it needs to be for the story to make sense. So perhaps time, like the ripples on that lake, is always both memory and anticipation, spreading outward and inward at once. The surface calms, but beneath it, motion continues. The reflection you see now carries both the imprint of the stone's fall and the shimmer of what's still moving. And as we drift from these delicate scales back toward the world of our own senses, we carry with us this new understanding that nothing is ever entirely over and nothing entirely begun. The past and the present are partners in an ongoing conversation, and that conversation continues in us, in every memory, every scar, every dream. The trail of thought now carries us gently toward the next horizon, where we'll rise back into the human world and see how all these cosmic and quantum mysteries translate into the intimate terrain of memory, meaning, and time travel, the ways we, the observers, live the story that the universe quietly writes. Some evenings, when the light begins to fade and the world turns quiet, you might find yourself looking through old photographs. The edges of the paper feel softer than you remember. The colours, once sharp, have turned slightly golden, as if the image itself has aged alongside you. You can still recognise the faces, the laughter caught in mid-air, the way the sun fell across that familiar street. But if you look long enough, you realise something unsettling. These pictures aren't windows to the past. They're traces, faint fingerprints of what once was. The photograph is not the day it shows. It's a fossil of light, an impression left behind when photons bounced off someone's smile decades ago. The ink remembers the shape, but not the warmth. The moment has moved on, and what remains is its echo, solidified into paper and pigment. The same is true of journals, voice recordings, footprints in snow. They're all records, not moments. You can step into a footprint, but not into the person who made it. You can read an old letter and feel the heartbeat of its writer, yet the ink was dry long before your eyes touched it. The world leaves evidence but never copies of itself. It's the same with us. Look closely at the small scars on your skin, the pattern of lines on your palm. They're the handwriting of time. Every cell, every wrinkle, every beat of your heart is a story written in the language of change. You don't carry the past inside you like a locked box. You carry its imprints, pressed into the very structure of who you are. Scientists sometimes speak of information being preserved in matter and energy, but let's say it more gently. Nothing that has ever happened disappears entirely. Every sound, every gesture sends small ripples through the world. Molecules moved, light scattered, gravity altered. The pattern diffuses, grows fainter, but it doesn't vanish. The universe forgets slowly, if at all. Even so, those ripples aren't the same as the moments themselves. They're like perfume lingering in an empty room. The scent remains, but the presence that made it has gone. The memory of the past exists in the structure of now. You can hold the evidence, but never the moment. Our brains too work like that. We like to imagine memory as a film reel we can rewind whenever we wish, but in truth, it's more like a painting recreated each time we recall it. The colours shift, the lines blur, details soften or sharpen depending on what we feel. The mind doesn't store moments, it rebuilds them. Each recollection is an act of imagination built from the scattered traces that experience left behind. Think of the way a song can transport you. You hear the first few notes and suddenly you're standing in another time. Perhaps your first dance, a car ride with the windows down, a night full of laughter. But that scene isn't actually playing again. It's being reborn in your mind, woven from sound, emotion, and longing. What you feel isn't the past itself. It's the present wearing the past's fragrance. There's beauty in that imperfection. If our memories were perfect, they would be lifeless recordings. Instead, they're living things, changing as we change, reflecting who we've become. Each recollection is a bridge built anew, connecting what was to what is. That bridge is fragile, but it's enough. Every civilization leaves similar traces. We find pottery fragments, handprints on cave walls, scratches of charcoal on stone. Each mark whispers, "I was here." Yet those whispers grow fainter as centuries pass. Wind and water erase them, just as time erases our daily routines. What survives is not the moment itself, but its shape, the pattern of what mattered most. And still, we try to go back. Every time we remember, every time we revisit an old place or reread a letter, we reach for the impossible. We long not just to observe the past, but to stand in it again, to breathe its air, to hear its sounds, to feel its warmth. That longing is ancient. It's why we build monuments, why we write stories, why we take pictures and tell our children who we were. It's our quiet rebellion against entropy, our way of refusing to let moments die completely. In physics, energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. You could say that time works the same way. Experiences fade, but their influence changes form. A conversation from years ago may no longer exist as sound waves, but its effect, your choices, your growth, your tenderness, continues to ripple outward. The trace becomes part of the world's next layer of memory. And so, what you carry is not the past itself, but its residue, the way it shaped you, the meaning it left behind, the smell of rain that still makes you pause, though you can't recall which memory it belongs to, the comfort in certain words, the small ache when a familiar melody ends. These are the fossils of emotion, pressed into the fabric of your being. Perhaps that's what makes life beautiful. It's always in motion, always slipping away, but never completely gone. Like the after image of a bright star still visible long after the light source has vanished. The past glows faintly inside the present. We can't live there, but we can still feel its warmth. And yet, even knowing this, the heart rebels. It dreams of stepping back, of finding a door hidden somewhere, a moment that opens into another time. The dream of return is irresistible. We imagine machines, portals, wormholes, anything that could take us home to what's already lost. Because to be human is to love what passes, and to wish, even for a breath, that it didn't. So we build our quiet time machines out of memories, songs, stories, and longing. We replay old laughter in our minds, rebuild places that no longer stand, speak with voices that no longer answer. Each act of remembering is a small rebellion, an attempt to visit a place we can't reach. And though we know we cannot truly return, the wish itself says something tender about us. We are creatures who trace patterns in dust, who build meaning from echoes, who carry whole worlds in the shape of a single photograph. If the universe writes its story through entropy, then perhaps we write ours through remembrance, turning loss into narrative, fading into meaning. The marks we leave, the lives we touch, become the fossils someone else will one day find, wondering who we were and what we felt. But there's something deeper still, a thought that glimmers like the last ember in a dying fire. If all we hold are traces, why do we keep dreaming of the original flame? Why do we yearn so fiercely to step through the door and walk back into a time that can't return? That question, gentle and unanswerable, leads us onward. Our quiet exploration now turns to the longing itself, the human desire to undo distance, to fold time back into itself, to believe that somewhere the past still waits for us. If you could step back into any moment of your life, where would you go? It's the kind of question that slips into the mind late at night, when the house is quiet and the air feels heavier with memory. Maybe you'd choose a simple moment, one that didn't seem extraordinary at the time. Sitting by a window as rain fell, the smell of wet earth rising through the air. Or standing in the sunlight with someone you've lost, saying nothing because nothing needed to be said. You might not want to change anything, you'd just want to be there again. That desire to go back is one of humanity's oldest dreams. Every story of time travel, every myth of eternal youth or second chances begins with that longing. We don't really crave the machinery of time. We crave reconciliation with what we lost, with what we left unfinished, with who we used to be. But when science and philosophy try to chase this dream, they find themselves tangled in paradox. Each vision of time we've explored, presentism, eternalism, the growing block, offers a different answer to the same ache. If presentism is right, and only the present truly exists, then there is simply nowhere to go. The past is gone as completely as breath on glass. You could build the most magnificent time machine imaginable, one with gears of starlight and engines that hum with the music of gravity, and it would still have nowhere to arrive. It would roll forward, eternally confined to the single shining surface of now. And yet, that very limitation holds a kind of freedom. If the past no longer exists, then its mistakes cannot trap you. There's no page to turn back to, no line to rewrite. Every moment becomes a clean slate, burning away behind you. You're forever unbound, walking on new ground with each step. The dream of return fades, but so does the weight of regret. Eternalism, on the other hand, would tell you something very different. In its vast, frozen universe, every moment exists forever, side by side, like frames on a film reel. The past, the present, the future, they're all there, equally real, equally alive in their own places. You could, in theory, walk across that reel, visiting any frame you wish. The day you were born still exists. The day you will die already waits. But in such a universe, time travel raises a haunting question. If every moment already is, then can you truly change anything? You could imagine travelling to another time like opening a book and moving your finger from one sentence to another. The sentences don't change, you simply change your place within them. The past you visit would be the same one that always existed. If you tried to alter it, say, to prevent a tragedy or undo a mistake, you'd find yourself woven into the same pattern, fulfilling it rather than escaping it. It's a gentle kind of trap, beautiful and melancholy. The block universe doesn't forbid time travel, it just makes it circular. You can move along the story, but the story itself never bends. And then there's the growing block view, where the past and present are real, but the future hasn't been written yet. In that world, time is a sculpture still being carved, each strike of the chisel adding a new layer of reality. You could, perhaps, look backward through the structure, admire what has already been shaped, but you couldn't step beyond the edge into what's still being made. The past is preserved, but the future remains unwritten. You could gaze at yesterday, but never stand within it. Still, even if physics and philosophy disagree about how time is built, the longing to return doesn't fade, because beneath every theory, every thought experiment, lies the same human yearning, to see again what has been lost. Consider the most famous thought experiment in all of time travel stories, the grandfather paradox. It goes like this. If you could travel back in time and prevent your own grandfather from meeting your grandmother, then you would never be born, and thus could not travel back to stop them. The story collapses into itself, like a sentence with no beginning. But rather than seeing it as a puzzle, think of it as a parable. The paradox is a gentle reminder that every action is entangled with the fabric of the whole. You cannot erase what gave you existence without erasing the act of erasure itself. The universe, like a careful editor, won't let its story contradict itself. If you were somehow to travel backward, you wouldn't undo the past, you would fulfill it, walking through the lines already written, playing the part that was always yours to play. And maybe that's why, deep down, we know that true time travel will always belong to dreams. The heart can wander through time more easily than any machine ever could. You already do it whenever you remember, whenever you listen to an old song and feel yourself dissolve into the moment it came from. The past still lives inside you, not as a location to visit, but as a feeling that keeps moving through you, whispering its shape into your thoughts. That's the real engine of time travel. Not metal or equations, but memory. It runs on emotion, on longing, on the unbroken chain between who you were and who you are. Every time you remember something vividly enough to feel it, you've travelled in a way that science will never measure. Perhaps we imagine time machines because we already have one, the mind itself. It cannot take you back to the literal world of the past, but it can make you feel it again. The laughter, the air, the sense of being alive in a moment you thought was gone. That might be the most powerful form of return we're ever meant to have. And even if the dream remains just that, a dream, it tells us something tender about ourselves. We are the only creatures who grieve the passage of time and also find beauty in it. We watch sunsets knowing they end, and love them because they do. We tell stories about returning not to escape the present, but to understand it. So perhaps the dream of return isn't about reversing time at all. It's about realizing that the past isn't entirely lost. It's here, breathing quietly beneath the surface of the present, alive in the way we remember, the way we build meaning from what's gone. The dream doesn't break the laws of physics, it reveals the laws of the heart. And if we follow that thought further, we come to another mystery. What if the universe itself protects its story, ensuring that no matter how far imagination travels, it always circles back to harmony? What if time, in its quiet wisdom, never allows contradiction, only adaptation? The next step in our journey leads us toward that idea, the possibility that even if we could bend time, the universe would gently bend us back into place. Imagine for a moment that time travel were truly possible. You've built the machine, perhaps not from gears and wires, but from sheer imagination, and you're standing inside it, ready to step back into a day you thought was lost. Maybe it's a childhood morning, the smell of toast, the light through the window, the sound of someone humming in another room. You reach for the lever, ready to return. But the universe, kind and careful, hesitates. It's as if something vast and invisible rests a hand on your shoulder and says, wait. That pause, that quiet resistance, is what scientists and philosophers call the universe's way of keeping its story coherent. In physics, it's sometimes named the principle of self-consistency, but we can translate it more gently. Reality has a sense of harmony. It allows everything that can happen except those things that would unravel its own song. You might think of it like a river that bends but never breaks its banks. You can disturb the current, but it will always find a path that leads downstream. If you were to travel back and try to change something fundamental, say, to stop your younger self from boarding a train or to prevent an ancestor's meeting, the current would simply rearrange around you. It wouldn't forbid your action. It would fold it into the story so that, in the end, the outcome still fits. You were always there. You always made that choice. The universe keeps its continuity. In this way, the universe behaves less like a rigid clock and more like a skilled storyteller. Every event is a thread in the fabric, and if you pull one too hard, the weave tightens elsewhere to keep the pattern whole. Even the wildest possibilities are contained within that balance. The past cannot be undone, but it can be understood anew, each understanding becoming another layer of the same truth. This idea, though born from the strangeness of quantum equations, has a surprisingly gentle heart. It suggests that the universe is not fragile, it's self-healing. Like skin closing over a wound, it restores coherence no matter how chaotic things may seem. And maybe that's why our imaginations, even when they play with paradoxes, always find a way back to sense. The stories where travelers succeed in changing history usually end with the change itself becoming the reason the story existed in the first place. The principle is sometimes illustrated with examples from thought experiments, timelines branching, loops closing perfectly upon themselves, but we can tell it more softly. Imagine a melody. You might wish to change a single note halfway through to rewrite the song, but once that note sounds, it reverberates through everything before and after it. To alter it now, you would have to alter the entire composition. The song you wanted to change would become a new song altogether, one where that note was always what it was meant to be. In some interpretations of modern physics, this is exactly how the universe behaves. When confronted with a paradox, a situation where cause and effect might collide, it simply opens a new path, a parallel branch, allowing both possibilities to exist without conflict. You could call it the universe's kindness, its refusal to choose violence against itself. When contradiction arises, it writes another page rather than tearing one out. But even without that branching, the essence remains. Reality guards its coherence the way a heart guards its rhythm. It can be stretched, bent, even slowed by gravity or motion, yet the beat continues. This is why, no matter how far we imagine travelling through time, every story eventually brings us home. The universe protects itself by protecting the possibility of continuity. You can sense this protection even in ordinary life. Think about regret, the wish to go back and change a single decision. Often when we look deeper, we realise that without that very moment, the person we are now wouldn't exist. The pain that once seemed pointless becomes the soil from which understanding grew. You can't rewrite the event, but you can rewrite its meaning. The universe's harmony appears again, not as physics, but as forgiveness. It's almost poetic to think that what's true for time might also be true for people. We bend, we break, we heal, and somehow the story still makes sense. The contradictions within us, the mistakes, the detours, don't destroy the whole, they give it depth. In that way, we mirror the cosmos. Both of us learn how to keep our narratives intact, even when the script surprises us. Some have wondered whether the universe's refusal to let time travel break its logic means that free will itself is limited. But perhaps that's too harsh a view. It might be better to say that freedom lives within harmony. A musician improvising a melody is free, but still plays within the key. In the same way, we move within the vast parameters of what remains possible without tearing the pattern apart. We're participants in the music, not its conductors. And yet, the fantasy of defying that pattern will never leave us. We keep building stories, movies, and daydreams about rewriting time because it reflects something we feel deep inside, the wish for continuity, for the world to make sense even when we don't. Every time traveller, from the ancient mythic heroes to modern fiction's wanderers, carries the same hidden hope, that the universe is merciful enough to let the story heal. Even if no one ever steps into a machine and vanishes into the past, we already live inside loops of our own. Every time you remember, you revisit a moment. Every time you tell your story differently, you alter how the past fits within your present. The physics of time may be strict, but the physics of meaning is generous. The mind can travel farther than matter ever will. So perhaps the self-consistency of the universe isn't a cage, but a comfort. It ensures that existence, no matter how turbulent, remains readable. The river doesn't forbid us to move. It simply makes sure that we always have a downstream to follow. And if you ever find yourself wishing you could change something long gone, remember this. You can still transform its place in the pattern. You can forgive, reinterpret, reimagine. The event remains the same, but your relationship to it doesn't have to. That is the true form of time travel, the kind that turns pain into wisdom, loss into tenderness, chaos into continuity. Our journey through the mysteries of time travel, then, leads not to machines, but to memory. The past may be protected, but it is not silent. It lives in the traces we carry and the meanings we create. From here, the path turns inward, toward the most intricate time traveller of all, the human mind, the fragile recorder that rebuilds the world every time it remembers. Somewhere in your home, there might be a box filled with pieces of your own history, photographs, letters, ticket stubs, maybe a seashell from a beach you barely remember. You keep them not because they hold great value, but because they feel like pieces of time. Each one whispers something faint. This happened, this mattered. And yet, even as you hold them, you know they're not the past itself. They're reminders, echoes that only come alive when your mind decides to listen. The same is true of your memories. You might think of them as files in a cabinet, perfectly stored, waiting to be opened whenever you need them. But the truth is gentler and far stranger. The brain doesn't keep memories the way a hard drive stores data. It keeps fragments, textures, sensations, the shape of a feeling. When you recall something, your mind doesn't retrieve it fully formed, it recreates it. Every memory you have is a reconstruction. Each time you remember, you're not watching a recording. You're painting from memory, guided by faint outlines and emotion. The act of remembering reshapes the memory itself, blending past and present into something new. Scientists have found that the same parts of the brain that help you imagine the future are active when you recall the past. To your mind, both are acts of creation. Think of an artist painting a familiar landscape over and over. Each version is slightly different. Colours warmer, trees taller, sky brighter or darker depending on the mood. None of the paintings are false. They're all true to the painter who created them at that moment. Memory works the same way. You remember the event not as it was, but as it feels now, painted with the brush strokes of who you've become. This constant rewriting is why memories fade and shift, why old arguments mellow into lessons and childhood fears turned into stories you can smile at. The brain doesn't make mistakes when it does this. It's performing its quiet miracle of adaptation. It ensures that the past remains relevant to the present, that what you recall continues to serve the life you're living now. You can sense this blending in the way music works on the mind. You hear an old song, and suddenly the air feels heavier with the presence of another time. You can almost smell it. The room, the weather, the heartbeat of that day. But look closer. The memory isn't a perfect replay. The song doesn't resurrect the exact moment. It invites your mind to rebuild it, like a tide that recreates the shape of a shore with each wave. The neuroscientists who study memory sometimes talk about plasticity, a word that means flexibility. It's the brain's ability to change itself, to strengthen or weaken the pathways that carry thought. But if we translate that into softer language, it means this. The mind is like clay, never entirely set. It shapes and reshapes itself with each reflection. To remember is to sculpt, not to store. That plasticity is why trauma can heal, why forgiveness feels like release, why nostalgia aches and soothes at the same time. Your memories are not prisons. They are living spaces. They breathe. They evolve. They reflect not only what happened, but what you've learned since. When you remember someone who is gone, you aren't just revisiting the past. You're keeping them alive in a way that only exists in the present. You're reanimating their voice, rebuilding the warmth of their presence with every heartbeat. The person you recall is not a perfect copy. They're shaped by love, by time, by everything you've lived through since. And maybe that's not an error, it's grace. Because if memory were perfect, it would be unbearable. You'd never be able to move on. The past would sit inside you unchanged, endlessly replaying. Forgetting, in that sense, is mercy. It gives space for the present to exist. The mind lets go of detail so the heart can keep its rhythm. And yet, every so often, a detail returns, unbidden, like a small bird landing on your shoulder. The smell of baking bread, the sound of laughter through an open window, the rhythm of a voice long silent. These moments feel almost supernatural, as if time itself has momentarily bent to let something through. But it isn't time bending. It's the mind's intricate design, capable of weaving traces into vivid presence. You could say that memory is the universe's smallest time machine, but not because it travels backward. It folds the past into the present. It reminds us that time is not a chain but a fabric, and we are the thread that runs through all its layers. From a scientific view, every time you recall a memory, new chemical connections form in your brain. The pattern of electricity and molecules shifts. That means the act of remembering physically changes you. You're not the same person after each recollection. You're slightly altered, refined by your own story. The memory evolves, and so do you. This idea can be both humbling and freeing. It means the past doesn't live outside you, frozen in perfection or regret. It lives within you, flexible, responsive. The story of your life is not a fixed script, but a living dialogue between what was and what is. Even the mistakes and heartbreaks that seem carved in stone are not immutable. Every time you think of them, they soften, reshape, sometimes even lose their sharpness. What felt like a wound becomes a scar, and the scar becomes a map, a sign that healing happened there. So when you find yourself lost in nostalgia or weighed down by memory, it might help to remember this. Your mind is not a recording device, it's an artist's studio. The brushes are always in motion, the canvas is never finished. What you remember is not proof of where you've been, It's a reflection of where you are. Perhaps that's why remembering can feel so fragile. It isn't about holding on to the past, it's about learning how to let it live gently within you. Each recollection is a flicker of connection, a bridge built, crossed, and rebuilt every time you care enough to think of it again. And maybe that's where the truest form of immortality lies, not in the permanence of matter or the repetition of history, but in memory's endless act of renewal. Through remembering, we keep giving the past a chance to breathe again, softly, like a flame that refuses to go out entirely. If the past exists anywhere, perhaps it's in this tender cycle, the way we keep rebuilding it, moment by moment, through thought, feeling, and love. That might be the universe's most human secret, that remembrance itself is a form of creation. And as we drift further into the story, we'll return once more to the larger question: how meaning and mathematics, science and emotion coexist in the same unfolding fabric. How we, fragile recorders of time, might live peacefully inside something so immense. For thousands of years, we've tried to understand time using two languages, one spoken by poets and one written by physicists. The first speaks in feelings, the hush of a sunrise, the ache of nostalgia, the way a minute stretches when you wait for someone you love. The second speaks in patterns, equations, symmetry, geometry, precision. Both tell the truth, but neither can tell the whole truth. Between them lies the oldest tension in all of thought, the quiet clash between meaning and math. Philosophers have always asked what time is. Physicists more practically ask what time does. The philosopher sits beside the river and wonders if the water really flows, or if flow itself is just a trick of perception. The physicist measures the current, records the speed, maps the curve of the bank. Both are right in their own ways, but they're answering different questions. To science, time is a variable, a way to describe change. A clock doesn't care whether the seconds it measures feel joyful or lonely. It counts regardless. To philosophy, time is an experience, a moment shared between people, a season of grief, a childhood that seems to last forever. The first is measurable, the second is meaningful. We often try to fold one into the other, but they resist. You can measure the heartbeat, but not the heartbreak. You can calculate the age of a star, but not the weight of a memory. Numbers describe how time behaves, but not what it means to live inside it. And yet, both languages are necessary. Without math, we'd be lost in superstition. Without meaning, we'd be lost in indifference. The equations of physics tell us how the planets move, but the poems tell us why their motion feels like grace. Still, the friction between them is real. Physicists often speak of symmetry, the elegant balance in nature's laws that makes them the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But from our human view, time feels anything but symmetrical. We remember the past, not the future. We age, we change, we long. Entropy rises, energy spreads, life transforms into something else. The equations might not mind direction, but we do. Philosophers, in turn, accuse physics of mistaking the map for the territory. They say, you can draw the river, even model its flow, but you'll never taste the water. A description, no matter how accurate, can't replace experience. Maybe both sides are right. Maybe physics is the skeleton, and philosophy the breath. Together they make something alive. To see this clearly, imagine trying to describe a song. Mathematics can measure the vibrations, frequencies, and harmonics that make it sound. It can even write formulas to predict how those vibrations will blend. But none of that explains why the melody makes you cry. You need both, the structure and the story, the pattern and the pulse. The same is true of time. Science gives us the structure, space-time curvature, atomic clocks, gravitational dilation. Philosophy gives us the pulse, longing, regret, the fragile miracle of now. They're not enemies. They're partners who argue constantly because they care about the same mystery. You could say that physics paints time as geometry, a four-dimensional shape where all moments coexist. Philosophy paints time as narrative, a story that unfolds one heartbeat at a time, and we, caught in between, are both geometer and storyteller. We build machines that measure nanoseconds, then stay awake at night remembering hours that felt like lifetimes. The deeper you look, the more you realise that meaning and math might be reflections of the same thing seen from different angles. The physicist's space-time continuum is, at heart, a grand attempt to find order in chaos, to find something eternal beneath change. The poet's reverie is the same search, told in softer language. Both are ways of saying, I want to understand why this moment matters. Still, the difference in tone is striking. Physics whispers, everything is connected. Philosophy whispers, everything changes. Maybe both are right because connection is what allows change to matter. Without connection, moments would be isolated islands. Without change, they'd never mean anything at all. There's an old saying, philosophy builds questions, science builds bridges. Yet the bridges are always built over questions that never stop deepening. The more precisely physics measures time, the stranger it becomes. The faster a clock moves, the slower it ticks. The stronger the gravity, the more it stretches the seconds. What we call now bends and warps under pressure. But even as the formulas twist and the measurements grow more precise, the mystery remains. The equations can tell us that two observers in different places will disagree about what's simultaneous. But they can't tell us what it feels like to be human in a world where no two people share the same present. Meaning asks, what is it like to live inside a universe that never repeats itself? Math answers, it's predictable in its unpredictability. Meaning says, but I still miss the days that are gone. You can almost imagine them as old friends sitting together on a park bench at dusk. Math counts the stars as they appear. Meaning listens to the silence between them. They disagree on everything but the view. Perhaps the real harmony lies in knowing when to listen to each. When you need to build a bridge or send a spacecraft to another world, you trust the math. But when you look up at the sky and feel a sudden ache for something you can't name, you're hearing meaning speak. And in those moments, precision becomes less important than presence. Maybe the universe doesn't care which language we use because both describe the same truth in their own way, that existence is both order and wonder, logic and longing. We study it so that we can marvel at it. We marvel at it so that studying it never feels cold. So the clash between meaning and math isn't really a war. It's a conversation, endless and necessary. The poet leans in to ask why, and the physicist answers how. Together they keep the question alive. And as that conversation continues through equations, through dreams, through stories like this one, it leads us quietly to another realization. Perhaps existence itself isn't what time does to the universe. Perhaps it's what consciousness does within it. The next step in our journey asks whether existence is even the right word at all, or if we're simply moving through a vast fabric of being, rearranging what has always been there, moment by moment. There's a moment after thinking about time for too long, when the word exist begins to lose its grip. You say it quietly to yourself, exist, exist, and it starts to sound strange, like a shell emptied of meaning. Perhaps that's the problem. Maybe existence is not a thing at all, not a property that the universe hands out like tickets. Maybe it's a process, a weaving, a rhythm, a pattern that never stops shifting. The word exist comes from old roots meaning to stand out, as if to exist were to stand apart from something else. But what could anything in the universe truly stand apart from? The atoms in your body are the same ones forged in the hearts of long-dead stars. The air you breathe has passed through countless lungs. Every drop of water in your veins has been ocean, rain, tear, and cloud. Nothing stands alone. So maybe existence is the wrong word. Maybe continuance is better. or becoming, or simply being part of. Time isn't a ruler measuring distance from one moment to the next. It's the fabric itself, and we are the threads weaving through. Imagine a vast tapestry stretching beyond sight. Each thread crosses thousands of others, shimmering with colour and movement. From where we stand, we can only see a few inches of it. Our little corner, our now. We think of it as linear, as though we're moving through time like a train along a track. But from a distance, there is no line, only a pattern already complete, glowing with intersections and echoes. The thread never leaves one part to appear in another. It's continuous, always part of the whole. If that's true, then nothing is ever truly erased. When something ends, it doesn't vanish. It changes form, like a melody that resolves into silence but remains present in the air that follows. The energy that makes up everything from galaxies to thoughts doesn't disappear. It rearranges. The universe, in that sense, never deletes. It only edits. Think of how heat becomes light, how light becomes memory, how memory becomes emotion. The chain is seamless. A candle flame warms the air, the warmth moves molecules, the movement stirs a breeze, and in that breeze, dust particles catch the glow and shimmer like tiny stars. Nothing leaves. It simply migrates into new arrangements. The world is a dance of transformations, not a collection of things. Physicists sometimes describe the cosmos as a field, a single, continuous ocean of energy that fluctuates and takes on form much like waves on water. The waves rise, crest and fall, but the ocean remains. You and I, the stars and the spaces between them, are all temporary ripples in that same deep sea. We come and go, but the water doesn't. The sea never loses a drop. If you translate that into gentler language, it becomes almost comforting. We are not separate from the universe. We are its momentary shapes. Like patterns in mist, we appear, dissolve, and reappear elsewhere, made from the same invisible vapour. In this light, death is not absence, but change. The pattern you are shifts into other forms, other waves, other songs. This idea that everything continues through transformation has been whispered by philosophers long before physics found its equations. Ancient poets wrote that nothing dies, only changes clothes. Modern cosmology, when spoken softly enough, says nearly the same thing. The starlight in your eyes is ancient. The atoms that hold you together have been recycled countless times through countless beings. You're part of a continuity that predates life itself. If we see the universe this way, then existence stops being about isolated moments and becomes about relationships. Every atom exists through its connection to others, every person through their relationships, every thought through the web of memory and perception that sustains it. Being, in this sense, is never singular. It's a verb that requires company. Imagine the universe as a great orchestra. Each instrument plays its part, stars humming deep notes, planets adding rhythm, living beings providing melody. The music changes constantly, but no note ever truly disappears. It resonates through the whole, lingering as harmony. When one instrument fades, its echo threads through the next measure. We don't stop existing when our song ends. We continue as resonance, carried in the music that follows. The mistake may have been thinking of time as something we move through, instead of something that moves through us. We picture ourselves as travellers across minutes and hours, but perhaps we are the canvas, and time is the brush. It paints us, layer by layer, moment by moment, until we are whole. When the painting is finished, the brush keeps moving, but the image remains. There's a quiet freedom in this thought. If existence is a shared fabric, rather than a sequence of moments, then you are never truly isolated. Even when you feel alone, you are still part of the pattern, still vibrating with the same energy that fills the stars. You cannot fall out of the universe any more than a wave can fall out of the ocean. This way of seeing changes how we think about loss. When someone you love is gone, it isn't that they've vanished from reality. They've simply changed their arrangement in the fabric. Their pattern continues in ways you can't see, in the warmth that lingers in your memory, in the choices you make because of them, in the countless unseen ripples they left behind. Nothing truly leaves. It just becomes quieter, more subtle, more diffused. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "Everything is gestation, and then bringing forth." The universe seems to follow that same rhythm: gestation, transformation, renewal. To be alive is to participate in that rhythm knowingly, to be aware of your own impermanence and your own eternity at once. So perhaps the question, do we exist, is less important than how are we connected? The stars don't worry about their place in the sky. They simply shine, sharing their light across impossible distances. We too radiate, through thought, through care, through attention. Every kindness you give, every gentle word becomes part of the pattern. The universe rearranges slightly to include it. And when we begin to see time not as a linear ruler, but as a living tapestry, our perspective softens. The fear of endings loses its edge. What's gone isn't gone, it's woven beneath what remains. What's coming isn't foreign, it's already forming in the threads beside you. Maybe, then, the purpose of existence isn't to stand out from the universe, but to participate in it fully, to be the needle moving through the cloth, stitching one bright moment to another. Each pass adds another connection, another fragment of colour, another act of being. And as we drift deeper into this understanding, another question begins to emerge, quiet and luminous. If everything continues, if nothing is ever truly lost, what does that mean for the moment we call now? Can we find freedom not in escaping time, but in embracing the endless act of becoming that every second offers? That's where our journey leads next, to the freedom hidden inside impermanence and the strange peace that comes from realizing that the present is not a prison, but the most generous gift the universe gives. There's a certain stillness that arrives when you finally accept that you can't step backward or forward in time, that all you truly have is this single moment, this breath, this heartbeat. At first, it feels small, almost disappointing, like being told that a grand adventure has been reduced to the size of a room. But then, if you stay with that stillness long enough, something remarkable happens. The room expands, the air grows deeper. The single moment, when looked at closely, opens into infinity. Presentism, the idea that only the present is real, often sounds restrictive, as if it steals the past from us and denies us the future. But maybe it's not theft, maybe it's mercy. The present doesn't erase time, it gathers it. Every past you've lived, every future you'll imagine converges here, where you are now. This instant contains them all, compressed into a heartbeat. You could think of the present as the crest of a wave, balanced perfectly between the deep push of the past and the endless pull of what hasn't yet come. The wave doesn't mourn the water behind it or fear the water ahead. It simply rises, shines, and breaks, giving shape to the ocean for one bright moment. In the same way, every moment of your life is both a culmination and a beginning. The universe has taken billions of years to make this single second possible, to align the air you breathe, the gravity that holds you here, the flicker of awareness that lets you notice it. That's the miracle of the present. It's not fleeting, it's deliberate. The whole cosmos cooperates to make this breath real. When you live fully in the present, you become free from the endless negotiations of time. The mind spends so much energy travelling, revisiting what can't be changed, rehearsing what might never happen. But here, in this small slice of now, you're not chasing anything. You're simply being. The past no longer has its claws in you, and the future no longer dangles its promises. You are weightless. You can practice this kind of freedom in the smallest ways. Sit quietly and notice something ordinary. A leaf moving in the wind, the rhythm of your own breathing, the sound of distant traffic like waves. For just a few seconds, let it be enough. Not as preparation for something greater, but as its own completeness. What you're touching in that pause is the core of all existence, the present moment that renews itself endlessly, like a fountain that never dries. It's not easy, of course. The mind doesn't like to stay still. It's built to move, to predict, to remember. But that movement isn't the enemy. It's the texture of being alive. You don't have to silence it, only to notice it passing through. The stream of thought, like time itself, can flow without carrying you away. There's an old story about a monk who asked his teacher, "What is enlightenment?" The teacher replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The monk frowned. "Isn't that what everyone does?" The teacher smiled. "No. Most people are lost in thoughts of the past or the future. To truly eat when eating, to truly sleep when sleeping, that is freedom." In physics, we talk about time as relative, stretching and contracting with motion and gravity. But you don't need a spaceship to feel that elasticity. You experience it every day. A joyful hour feels like a minute. A painful minute feels like a year. The clock may not change, but the experience of it does. Time bends under the weight of attention. That means the one thing you truly control is not the flow of seconds, but how you fill them, with presence or with distraction. So perhaps the truest form of time travel is not backward or forward, but inward. When you focus fully on the present, you step out of the rush of chronological time and into something wider, quieter, more intimate. The moment expands until it feels timeless. It's the same sensation you have when you lose yourself in music or art or love. The awareness that for once you're not measuring life, you're living it. And in that timelessness, freedom reveals itself. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to be anything, to exist without being trapped by what came before or what comes next. You could think of it as the still point in a spinning wheel. Everything moves around it, yet it stays perfectly centered. The present is that point, the quiet axis of your experience. When you look at life this way, even impermanence stops feeling like loss. You realize that nothing was ever meant to last because each moment is already complete in itself. The sunrise doesn't fail because it fades. It succeeds by appearing at all. The flower doesn't lose its purpose when it wilts. It fulfills it. The beauty of impermanence is that it keeps giving you the chance to begin again. There's a kind of courage required to live this way, to stop clinging to the comfort of before or the illusion of after, and to stand barefoot in the middle of the present, feeling the ground for what it is. It's not an escape from time, it's a deep trust in it. The trust that even without a map, the next moment will unfold exactly as it should. Think of how clouds drift across the sky. They never resist their shape, never wish to return to what they were. They form, they change, they dissolve, and in doing so, they remain part of the same great atmosphere. You too are like that, formed and reformed by time, but always part of something continuous. Perhaps the reason the present feels so precious is because it's the only place where the universe and consciousness meet. The laws of physics describe a vast and different cosmos, but the present is where that cosmos becomes aware of itself. Through you, through every living being that feels and thinks. You're not just in the universe, you're the point where the universe experiences itself as alive. That's what freedom really means. Not detachment from the world, but participation without fear. To live this moment fully is to trust that all the others, past and future, are already held within it, folded like petals in a single flower of time. When you exhale now, this breath will never return. But that doesn't make it wasted. It makes it sacred. The past breath built this one. the next will rise from it. They form a chain of continuity that only feels like motion because you're the one breathing it. So let the present be enough. Let it unfold without condition. You don't have to hold on to it. You only have to notice it as it passes, shimmering like sunlight on water. And as we follow that shimmer onward, another thought begins to rise. The opposite of impermanence, yet equally tender. The idea that even as we let moments go, something within us endures, connecting all of them together. From here, the story drifts toward that quiet weight of continuity, the eternal presence that balances the freedom of the moment with the comfort of permanence. If the present moment is a wave rising and falling, then continuity is the ocean itself, the vast, unbroken surface from which all moments emerge. It holds everything, even the parts we no longer remember. Every crest that rises, every ripple that fades is still part of the same water. You might say that eternalism, the idea that all points in time coexist, is an attempt to see the whole ocean at once. It tells us that nothing truly passes away. It merely changes its position in the eternal pattern. There is comfort in that thought, a kind of quiet security. If every instant is equally real, then your happiest moments are not gone. They still exist somewhere along the curve of space-time, preserved like beads on a thread. The laughter you once shared, the person you once were, the sunrise you thought you'd never see again, all of it endures. You can't reach it, but it hasn't been erased. It's still shimmering in its own place, complete and untouched. To imagine this, you might think of a piece of music. When you listen, you hear one note at a time, but all the notes already exist within the composition. The melody feels like it's unfolding, but in truth it's already written, waiting for your attention to pass across it. Time, from the perspective of eternity, might be just like that. A grand symphony that already exists in full, even though you can only hear it moment by moment. The philosopher's mind loves this image because it gives structure to chaos. The heart loves it because it promises that nothing precious is ever truly lost. Somewhere, in some corner of space-time, your childhood still glows like a lantern. Somewhere else, your future self is still forming, already written, but not yet read. Yet this idea carries both peace and melancholy. Peace, because it means that every joy and every love remains. Melancholy, because if all things are fixed, then perhaps change is only an illusion, and freedom with it. Eternalism can feel like a glass museum of moments, perfectly preserved, but motionless. The comfort of permanence, balanced against the stillness of destiny. Still, there's a gentler way to see it. If every moment exists, then each one matters infinitely. The way you smile at a stranger, the way you forgive yourself for something small, those gestures don't vanish when time moves on. They are written permanently into the structure of the universe. They don't fade, they simply move out of view. You might think of the universe as a book written in light, and every act of kindness as a sentence that will never be erased. Physics itself hints at this permanence. Energy and matter never disappear, they only change form. The warmth of your hand, the spark of your thought, the sound of your voice. All of it travels outward as ripples in the great field of being. The echoes grow fainter, but they never truly stop. If you could listen closely enough, you might still hear the sound of every word ever spoken, folded into the fabric of reality. And so, the idea of continuity becomes something more than a theory. It becomes a kind of faith, a belief that the universe remembers everything, not through judgment, but through participation. Every atom that ever made you continues to exist somewhere, transformed but not gone. The light that once reflected off your eyes now travels endlessly outward, carrying your gaze across the cosmos. In a literal, physical sense, You have already touched the stars. When you realize this, time feels less like a river that washes things away and more like a vast mural. Every brush stroke still present, layered upon the others. You move across it, seeing only a small portion at once, but the rest is there, waiting quietly beyond the frame of your awareness. Eternalism doesn't make life meaningless, it makes it sacred. Because if every moment is eternal, then every action is permanent. You can't undo a kindness, but you can also never truly lose one. You can't erase pain, but you can transform it into understanding. The tapestry holds both. Every thread matters. You could picture your life not as a journey from beginning to end, but as a constellation. Each moment, each decision, each emotion is a star, and together they form a pattern. When you look at the night sky, the light you see from distant stars left them long ago, yet it still reaches you now. In that sense, you're always surrounded by the past, bathed in its gentle glow. The universe is a gallery of old light, and you're both the viewer and the exhibit. This continuity can bring a strange sense of serenity. If everything endures, then there is no need to cling. You can let moments flow through you, knowing they will find their place in the whole. The love you gave is still somewhere. The laughter you shared is still echoing. Even your silence has weight. Even your stillness leaves a trace. But there's also humility in it. If all things persist, then we are bound to everything that has ever been. The stars that died billions of years ago still shape our nights. The people who lived and vanished before us still influence our choices in ways we can't see. You're standing on the sum of all that has ever existed. You are continuity made conscious. Perhaps that's why nostalgia can feel both sweet and heavy. It's not just memory, it's resonance. When you think of a day long gone, some part of you is still there, vibrating along the thread of that moment. The ache of remembering is the echo of connection. In a way, this is what love itself might be, a recognition of the eternal in the temporary. When you love someone, you are touching something that refuses to vanish, even though both of you will change. That's why certain memories glow brighter than others. They are places where eternity brushed against time. So while the freedom of the moment teaches you to let go, the weight of continuity teaches you to hold gently, to see each instant not as something passing, but as something joining, another note in a song that never stops playing. You don't need to choose between impermanence and permanence. They complete each other. Without the fleeting, there is no preciousness. Without continuity, there is no meaning. And somewhere between them lies a kind of peace, the understanding that everything you've ever been and everything you ever will be is already here, folded neatly within the infinite fabric of now. As the story drifts toward its close, we begin to see that maybe the truth about time was never meant to be found in the stars or the equations. Maybe it has always been here, in the heartbeat, in the breath, in the quiet ticking of the human clock, the way consciousness measures itself against eternity, one gentle moment at a time. Every ticking clock you've ever heard, on a wall, in a pocket, on a bedside table, exists for one simple reason. Because we needed a way to see ourselves in time. The universe doesn't keep time the way we do. Stars burn, atoms vibrate, galaxies drift. But none of them count the seconds. They simply are. It's consciousness, our restless awareness, that invents rhythm, dividing eternity into pieces small enough to hold. You could say that time, as we feel it, is the story consciousness tells itself so it doesn't get lost in infinity. Without that story, everything would happen all at once, and we wouldn't know where we begin or end. So we build order out of flow. We measure the immeasurable, not to confine it, but to orient ourselves, to feel that we belong somewhere within the endless unfolding. Look around you now, and you'll see the traces of that quiet human need. calendars marked with birthdays and anniversaries, hourglasses once turned by candlelight, watches worn close to the pulse, as if to remind the body that it beats in harmony with something larger. All these tools were never about time itself. They were about meaning. They turned existence into narrative, made the abstract feel intimate. In a sense, the human clock isn't a machine at all, it's the heart. Each beat is both a drum and a whisper, keeping rhythm with the cosmos. Your pulse slows when you're calm, races when you love, falters when you're afraid. It doesn't just measure time, it feels it. Every heartbeat is a small negotiation with eternity, a reminder that you're here, alive, experiencing the moment between what has passed and what's about to arrive. And when you think about it, that's all a clock really is, a mirror for our own awareness. We built them not to understand the universe, but to reflect the ticking we already carry within us. Even the most precise atomic clock, which counts the faint vibrations of atoms instead of gears, is simply an extension of the same desire, to bring order to the chaos of becoming. But as we've learned throughout this journey, order and meaning aren't the same. Physics can show us how time bends and slows under gravity, how it stretches near the speed of a light. Yet those beautiful equations don't explain why a single second can feel infinite when you're saying goodbye, or how a year can vanish in the rhythm of routine. The physics of time describes its structure. The human clock measures its soul. When a clock ticks, each sound is identical to the one before it. Perfect repetition. But inside you, no two moments ever feel the same. Each tick carries different weight, shaped by emotion, memory, attention. The external rhythm is steady. The internal one is alive. Maybe that's what consciousness adds to the universe. A heartbeat of awareness within the stillness of eternity. Imagine for a moment that you could see time the way light does. For light, there's no past or future. Its entire journey exists in one continuous sweep. The photon that left a distant star 1,000,000 years ago and the moment it strikes your eye now are part of the same act. To that photon, nothing ever changed. But to you, that 1,000,000 years feels like a gulf of history, filled with births, deaths, and entire civilizations. That difference isn't a flaw, it's the gift of perspective. Without it, there would be no story, no evolution, no growth. So perhaps time is not something we move through, but something that moves through us. We don't watch it pass. We translate it, turning waves of change into patterns of experience. We shape it into memory, into language, into art. Every poem, every melody, every conversation is an attempt to give shape to what is otherwise invisible. Think of how you've lived time already. The long afternoons that stretched endlessly when you were a child, the years that now seem to pass like quickening breaths. You've always been both the clock and the observer, the measure and the measured. The rhythm you sense is partly your own creation. There's something tender in realizing that the universe, vast and impersonal as it seems, experiences itself through you. Through the way you mark birthdays, grieve losses, celebrate dawns, through the small rituals that give shape to passing hours. You're not outside of time, you are time, aware of itself. When you look back across your life, what you're really seeing is a constellation of moments illuminated by memory, each one a tiny spark fixed in the sky of your mind. Together, they form the pattern you call self. But just as the stars you see at night may have burned out long ago, your memories are light from what's gone, still reaching you, still shaping your sky. The beauty of being human is that we can hold both truths at once, that we are fleeting and that we are eternal. Fleeting in form, eternal in participation. Every second you live becomes part of the universe's memory. You might forget a day, but the universe never does. The molecules that carried your laughter, the warmth that left your skin, the thoughts that sparked inside you, they all continue, woven into the great unfolding. So maybe it doesn't matter whether the past still exists or whether time truly flows. Maybe the only question that matters is how we live while it does. How we choose to spend these fragile, luminous intervals between one heartbeat and the next. You can't slow the cosmic clock. You can't rewind it or skip ahead. But you can fill each tick with presence, with kindness, curiosity, forgiveness, wonder. Each act of awareness makes the world a little more vivid, the universe a little more awake. When you lie awake at night and hear the faint ticking of a clock somewhere in the room, remember this. That sound isn't counting down your life, it's keeping you company. It's reminding you that you exist inside rhythm, that your very being is a pulse in the long, unending heartbeat of existence. And so, we've reached the end of tonight's quiet journey, not of time, but of our conversation about it. You can feel it now, can't you? That soft slowing, the way thoughts begin to fade into rhythm, the human clock settling into its natural pace. As you drift toward rest, let the seconds blur. Let the boundaries between past and future dissolve. You don't need to understand time. You only need to feel it passing through you, gentle, endless, forgiving. Somewhere galaxies turn. Somewhere light from ancient stars still travels toward your eyes. And here, in this small moment between heartbeats, the whole universe breathes with you. Sleep peacefully, wherever and whenever you may be.